the ancient Egyptian civilization distinguished itself in many domains, in technological advances at a particular time in antiquity compared to other contemporary civilizations. Greek and Roman authors tell about this as early as the 5th century before Christ, particularly in the domain of medicine. Indeed, many Egyptian treatments were adopted in Greece and the Roman Empire. One of them consists of a pregnancy test, which, according to the Egyptian writings, could not only tell if a woman was pregnant, but also predict the sex of the unborn child. And it was quite reliable. The Carlsberg Papyrus is a medical papyrus that was written in the New Kingdom. However, paleographic evidence suggests that it's a copy made by a practitioner from a much older papyrus that has been dated to the Middle Kingdom. Among the treatments and diagnoses that it contains, there is one that is unfortunately very damaged, which describes the oldest pregnancy test known today. You shall place barley and starch wheat in a cloth bag. On that every day. Dates. She will give birth to a male child. She will give birth many times. If she's not, so we agree, the details are not so clear. Of course, it's not this text that allowed us to establish the reliability of a pregnancy test, but a copy of this text, which we find in the Greater Berlin Papyrus written in the New Kingdom. Another way of saying whether a woman will give birth or not. Barley and starchy wheat on which the woman will urinate every day, and dates and sand put into bags. If they grow together, she will give birth. If a barley grows, it means a boy. If a starchy wheat grows, it means a girl. If they do not develop, she will not give birth. Therefore, patients were asked to moisten 2 samples daily, one containing barley and the other containing emmer wheat. The presence of dates in the practitioner's recommendation may be explained by the fact that they were used as fertilizer, while sand may have been used to reduce the stench of urine. The wording is not very clear on this point. The fact that this test from the Middle Kingdom was copied on at least 2 papyri several centuries after it was written attests to its popularity. But was it effective? The treatment was intriguing enough for various specialists to take an interest in it and try to test its effectiveness. In 1934, the German botanist Walter Hoffmann tried a first experiment. He filled 6 pots of 20 centimeters diameter with aerosol. Then he sowed barley seeds in 3 of them, and wheat seeds in the other 3. 2 pots were regularly watered with the urine of a pregnant woman, 2 others with the urine of a non-pregnant woman, and the last 2 were watered only. The first 4 vases were also watered occasionally. Walter Hoffmann reported the following results. In the water-only pots, the wheat and barley seeds germinated within 6 to 7 days. In the vases moistured with the urine of non-pregnant women, the seeds grew between the 10th and 14th day, but the plants were very atrophied and died after a month. Seeds watered with the urine of pregnant women formed plants that grew very quickly. After 1 month, they were more vigorous than those irrigated with water. In 1963, the Egyptologist Pierre Gallionguet led another experiment with a much larger sample of 48 subjects: 2 men, 6 non-pregnant women and 40 pregnant women. Control pots containing either barley or wheat were sprinkled with water, while others were subjected to various types of substances that retain moisture. Urine of women, pregnant or not, and urine of men. The results published by Pierre Galionghi showed that the cereals never grew when the urine of men or non-pregnant women was used. On the other hand, if the urine of pregnant women did not imply systematic germination of a plant, it largely favored in 70% of the cases. This result is explained by the presence of certain hormones, such as folliculine or prenanediol, in the urine of pregnant women. It's the chorionic gonadotropin hormone present in the urine of a pregnant woman that is looked for in our current pregnancy test. Since it's not known how exactly this test was practiced in ancient Egypt, it could never be reproduced in the same way. It should be noted, however, that in the experiments carried out by Walter Hoffmann, Pierre Galionghi, and others, only soil was used as a support for the seeds, whereas the Egyptian texts refer to sand and dates. If this pregnancy test could determine with absolute certainty that the woman was indeed pregnant with the germination of one of the other cereal, was it also reliable in the prediction of the sex of the unborn child? Pierre Galionghi noted that the predictions of birth were correct in 7 cases, but false in 16 others and impossible to evaluate in the 17 remaining cases. On the other hand, the German pharmacologist Julius Munger reported that, concerning his own experiments, the percentage of correct predictions amounted to 80% of the cases. Although it's difficult to evaluate the veracity of his method of diagnosing the sex of a child, it's nevertheless known that it's far from being reliable. While at the same time, Egyptians only had 50% of chance being wrong. On the other hand, it's a bit more difficult to explain why barley was associated with a boy and wheat with a girl. The Egyptologist Serge Sonneron has proposed to compare this birth prognosis with the following passage, taken from a theological text. He brought forth the barley from a man, he brought forth the wheat from a woman. Word games in the pregnancy test could thus be at the origin of these two associations. It indeed means both barley and the father, while the term metut, the germ, linked to mut, the mother. The Egyptologist Hermann Grapow suggested that the association was made because of the gender of the terms, barley, which is masculine, and Betty, Emawet, which is feminine. Traces of the Egyptian test can be found in the medical writings of ancient authors, but not only. An Egyptian doctor named Ibn Kamal Pasha wrote in the 10th century, "Or 7 grains of wheat, 7 grains of barley, 7 grains of beans will be taken. They shall be put in a clay dish, and the woman shall be commanded to pour her urine on the grains. The dish is to be left for 7 days, and then the contents are to be looked at. If they are sprouted, it will show that the owner is not sterile." In this medieval prescription, Ibn Kamal Pasha only keeps the first part of the ancient experiment and removed the determination of a child's sex. Moreover, his pregnancy test is much more radical than the ancient version, since it's now a question of establishing whether a woman is fertile or sterile. Finally, we note the replacement of sand and dates by beans and the presence 3 times of magic number 7. But that's not all. The one who prescribed this test could never have imagined that at the end of the 17th century, in Germany, one of his distant colleagues, the famous physician Christian Franz Paullini, would also register the Egyptian test in one of his works. Make 2 holes in the ground, throw barley in one and wheat in the other. Water both with the urine of a pregnant woman, and cover them again with soil. If the wheat grows before the barley, there will be a boy, but if the barley comes before, you are expecting a girl. Franz Paulini's prescription also introduces some differences from the Egyptian prescription. It's performed only on pregnant women and focuses only on determining the sex of the unborn child. In addition, it reversed the ancient association of Burnley boy and wheat girl. Finally, like Ik Kamal Pasha, the German doctor removed the bag that is supposed to contain all the seeds, sand and the dates at once. The patient now urinates from a simple hole in the ground. As far-fetched as this Egyptian test may seem, at first sight, it's based on an observation of natural phenomena that are often reliable or even exact, which makes it rather safe pregnancy test. On the other hand, the fact that Burnley was associated with male principle and wheat with a female principle had nothing to do with science. If you want to know more about the subject, I suggest you read my book Motherhood and Early Childhood in Ancient Egypt.